Yet another live with me, Namita Ramani, founder and CEO of Above Digital. For those who are new on my channel, I'm an entrepreneur and very much into learning new stuff, learning more from other entrepreneurs as well. And today I have a guest on my show. I have Arvin. Arvin, you need to help me with your surname because I always...
It's Daeizadeh.
Daeizadeh.
I caught myself saying it incorrectly, so it's okay.
Okay, so I didn't want to say it wrong on as we are going live, you know. So Arvin is an entrepreneur, he's an investor, and he's the organizer of the Cashflow Club in Dubai, where he also teaches on financial independence and how to have a cash flow mindset and think about basically having passive income. So Arvin, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and the fact that you are a cash flow club leader. But before you go ahead, I want to tell all our viewers, whoever are watching us live, please do like and share this video, whoever you think is going to benefit from these videos. Also, if you have any questions, I would love to, ask us any questions here. And even after the show, if you're seeing a replay, ask us questions and me and Arvin will be happy to come online and give our feedback and answers to you. So Arvin, coming to you, introduction about yourself and the fact that you're the Cashflow Club leader.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate it. For me, it was always about sharing what I know and learning from other people and keeping this ongoing kind of conversation. And for me, I started out as an immigrant in America, as an American immigrant. I came to California. I was there in Southern California, LA. And I grew up there, studied construction management at California Polytechnic, and it was around that time where I actually came across Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that changed a lot of my thinking, and I was still going to graduate and do the same plan of getting a good job and working, and I changed direction. And that direction also led me to Dubai in 2007.
Okay.
I came here mainly to, like many other people, to pay little or no taxes.
So you read the book when you were, how old you were then?
I was in my 20s, early 20s.
Okay.
I would say 21, maybe 22.
How did you get the hang of the Rich Dad Poor Dad book at that time?
Well,
you were always into reading?
Not really. I mean, I had a hard time reading. I had definitely a hard time in school, and that was one of the things that I liked about Kiyosaki. He didn't do well in school.
Okay.
He said that the C students hired the A students, and I was definitely for that. I like that idea. I got involved with an MLM, multi-level marketing or network marketing, direct marketing, goes under many names. And I did that, and one of the required readings was Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I read that book. It took me a little while, but it was very commonsensical. It was an easy read. It wasn't super complex. And he did a lot of repetition. And he actually says that about the game, is that repetition is how we learn. And so he repeated a lot of the same concepts. They were very simple concepts. And it was great because he gave a story. And
I'm going to come back to that story. So you were saying that you, from college, you went to MLM marketing, then you came to Dubai in 2007.
Yeah, so I became introduced to multi-level marketing in college. I had been approached many times, and I said no, and I finally got into one. And I respected the guy a lot. I felt like he was a good business person, entrepreneur. And I read the book, and that changed my mindset. And so I continued after college, and I got my first job in San Diego. And that ended...
My favorite city in America, San Diego. It's my favorite city in America.
Exactly. I definitely like it with every other city in California. So I came out here in 2007, mainly for the idea of making more money, furthering my career, and paying little or no taxes. That's one of the things that Kiyosaki talks a lot about, is how to eliminate taxes or reduce your taxes. The rich do that. The rich focus on how they keep more of their own money. So that's a key concept. It's not necessarily earning more, but keeping more. So if you made, as an example, $1 million a year, but you spent $999,000 a year and you left $1,000 in your pocket after making $1 million, are you really rich? So the idea is not the absolute amount that you earn, but how much you get to keep. And this has a lot to do with financial literacy, financial independence. So I came out here in 2007, and about 2011 is when I actually wasn't dependent on the salary anymore. It's not because I had a lot of passive income or I had a lot of money, but I had enough money that I can take care of myself if I didn't have a job. And that's when I got involved with Cashflow Club. I became a member at that time. And around 2012 is when I co-founded a consulting company with a partner, and I had the ability to take that risk. You know, a lot of people don't have savings or enough financial security to be able to take the risk of becoming an entrepreneur or a small business owner or even an investor. You know, it's too risky because they haven't saved up enough money or they don't know how to manage the money that they have. So if you have bad habits in your personal money, it's going to be really hard to run a business or run an investment professionally or even for yourself.
Very true. If you don't know how to take care of your own finances, how will you take care of your business finances?
It spills over. You know, if you have bad habits in personal and you can't be disciplined, you can't be organized, it's going to be really hard to keep in a job and because you need those skills. Those skills are very important. A lot of people, what they learn in their job about being organized, being very results driven, they transfer that over into their personal and family life, and so their family life tends to improve because more organized, they got their finances together, and there's more structure.
Sorry, I went there a little bit. So let's go more deeper into the cash flow mindset and introduction to the book, the Kiyosaki.
Yeah, exactly. The book, for those of you who are not familiar with it, Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's basically the story of his two dads. He has a biological dad and his best friend's dad. His best friend's dad was the one that didn't finish the 8th grade, was basically starting out on the poor side of the tracks, and his rich dad, his poor dad, his biological dad, was highly educated. He was having 2, I think, doctorates, multiple degrees, and finished college in 3 years at Stanford. Very, very smart guy, and actually earned a lot of money. But he still calls him his poor dad because he was poor in his mindset, not because he didn't have enough money. It's because the way he spent his money and what he did with his money was a poor mentality. And so his story is at the age of 9, he started becoming curious about how do people make money, how do you become rich, why are we poor, why are we having some of these challenges financially. So he had these 2 dads to talk to. He talked to his rich dad, which is his best friend's dad, and he had a certain mentality or mindset about money and how money works. And his poor dad had a different one. So as he said, because he had these 2 fathers, both he respected, both he looked up to, both were really good men, strong men, but they had different ideas about money. And so as he was growing up, he got to listen to both sides and make his own decisions. He got to decide on which path did he want to take. Did he want to be more like his rich dad, or did he want to be more like his poor dad in thinking and how they approached money? Like his poor dad would say, I can't afford it. I don't have enough money for that. But his rich dad idea was, never say you can't do something, say how can I do it? How can I afford it? And what happens is your brain starts taking on a new direction and starts solving a problem. But if you say I just can't do something, there's no problem to solve. It's a statement, you can't do it. And so that kind of thinking he gravitated towards and decided that he was going to be more like his rich dad. And his rich dad ended up leaving, when he passed away, he left lots of assets and trust fund for his kids and assets for them to develop and grow. Whereas his poor dad actually left his family a lot of debt for the house debt or personal loans or cars or whatever it may be. You know, obviously when you pass away you have more expenses.
Yeah.
So he left a lot of that for his kids. So as he was growing up and seeing how they would make decisions, what they would do, he would compare and decide which is best for him. And in that story in the book, he explains that you can look at it either way. Most of us learn about money through our parents, our friends, other family members, and teachers. And unfortunately, these people are not really experts in how to make money, even with financial advisors and brokers. These people often are not in a financial stable position themselves, even though they are advising on money. Oftentimes, they don't invest in the things that they tell their clients to invest in. So he says it's important as an investor, as an independent person, that you think about where you're putting your money and whose advice you listen to and where the advice is coming from. You know, if your neighbor says you should invest in this stock or invest in this real estate, your neighbor's pretty much in the same situation as you are, so they probably don't know as much as somebody who is getting those results. Then it's just an opinion rather than something that is really based off of results.
So then who should we listen to?
Well, that's the question. Is that it's the same idea as that why we listen to our parents, why we don't listen to strangers. We know that our parents care about us, rather than just listening to a stranger or some salesperson. We go into a store and the salesperson says, you know, this product is perfect for you, even though the person doesn't know our needs, our wants, our desires, our situation. Maybe there's a problem that we have that that product won't solve. So we don't trust that person so much because they're not knowing our situation, and we can't trust that their advice will fit with what we want. Same thing with financial, is that that person may not know our risk tolerance, may not know our appetite for how much money we want to make, what we need, and so forth.
So the decision should be taken by us?
Ultimately, yeah. It's like your doctor. Your doctor is not responsible for your health. You are. You go to the doctor to get good advice, expert advice, but ultimately it's your decision.
But like financial advisors, consultants, that's what their job is, to advise us.
It is, but if you give all your responsibility to somebody else, then they're in control of your financial future, not you.
So how do we, most of my audience is business owners, entrepreneurs, or people who are working and maybe thinking of having a business. So how can an entrepreneur who's anyway short in cash, first of all, to become an entrepreneur is someone who's starting with as little cash or maybe no cash, in the beginning. And how do we create such cash flow or such rich mindset? How do we apply this to our beginning of the journey?
Right, that is a very tough question, especially when you want to start out. You're thinking, well, I don't have money to be able to invest in the first place. How do I get started?
First, I want to make money from this business, then to be able to invest it and get cash flow rich and all that.
So one thing I would first bring up is that there is nobody that's making no money. There is no such thing. Everybody is eating, and everybody in some way, somehow,
living,
right? Living. It's not that we have a money-making problem, we have a money-spending problem.
That's something interesting to look at or think about. We don't have a money-making problem, we have a money-spending problem.
Right, and a lot of us don't know where we're spending our money, and whether or not where we're spending it is going to give us a good return. Meaning that if we're spending on food, obviously it's a return because it's nourishment and so forth. But we can't spend too much on food. Maybe food that we really doesn't bring us a lot of pleasure or benefit, or maybe it's not even healthy. So we don't get a good return on our body because we're not putting in the investment. Right? So we don't scrutinize where the money's going as much as we are when it's coming. We work very hard to get it coming in, and we get into the situation where we feel like more money would solve my problem.
Isn't it true?
We feel that way, but oftentimes the root of the problem is us, is how we're spending the money. Again, if you're making, and this is true, there are people who do make $1 million or more, but they spend most of it. And with Kiyosaki, he explains that that's a poor mindset. The poor mindset is somebody who spends everything they make. So you can see very clearly that if everything you made, you spent it every month and every year, you would have nothing left over. So you'd be basically poor. If your income stopped, you have nothing. No assets, nothing to live off of, nothing to be able to account for. So most of us know that saving is the first thing, is to be able to put money aside for ourselves and our future in case, like a rainy day kind of fun. Kind of thing. But not everybody does that. Most of the people in the world actually have this poor mentality. Even if they make a lot of money, they don't put any money aside. So that's the first thing, is that where are you spending it, and are you keeping more of the money that you make?
But as an entrepreneur or a business, if it's a self-funded business, you keep reinvesting in the company.
That's the idea. Yeah, you want to reinvest, but unfortunately not all the investment has a return. So just because you've bought property, that doesn't make the property itself an investment. If it's losing money every month, as Kiyosaki explains about his rich dad, is that that's a liability. And the definition that he provides, which is different from accounting or traditional business, is that an asset simply puts money in your pocket. If it doesn't put money in your pocket, it takes money from your pocket on a regular basis, then it's a liability. It has nothing to do with if it's worth something. Like your computer. If you buy your computer, it could be an asset because you do work with it and you're able to produce either goods or services, and you get paid for that. So your computer becomes an asset. But if you bought the computer and you put it on the shelf and you did nothing with it, it's just a liability. Yeah. Maybe over time the battery goes out and you got to spend more money to replace the battery and fix it, and it's not making anything. So just because you bought something and you spent money doesn't mean automatically it is an investment. So a lot of people in their business, the question is, where are we spending money that we get a return on our money? If you hire an employee and the employee's, let's say, underqualified, you're not going to get as good a return on that person because they're underqualified. They're not able to do the task, or they don't free up time, or they're not able to do sales or do business development.
They're actually losing money in the business then.
Right. Yeah. So the question is where are we spending the money and are we getting a return on that money? And you can do that in your personal life as well as business. And you want every dollar or every dirham to work hard for you as a return, whichever the return is calculated. The return isn't always necessarily in monetary figures. There's a lot of goodwill, there's brand and so forth, recognition, reputation. There's returns in that. But the idea is that you are as effective as you can be with the money that you are spending, and it's not careless or carefree.
Okay, so that's the cash flow mindset, to be mindful of where your money is going and how much return is the money giving back to you.
That's one of them, yeah. I mean, the main thing that he talked about with Rich Dad and his Poor Dad is that their attitude towards money and how they saw money. You know, like the Poor Dad, you know, he saw that money, focusing on money is being greedy. You know, that's a very big emotional and controlling thing for.
But that is what is important. Like as a new business or any business, the first thing you want to do anything in life or do any job or business or get into entrepreneurship is because you want to make more money.
Of course, I use the analogy like food. We all need to eat, right? But we don't all live just for eating. There's no purpose in that. But once you have enough food and you have enough nourishment, then your focus shifts. So in business, the idea is of the top companies and the companies that want to be around for 20, 30, 40 years, is that their focus shifts from just surviving and making money to what is the purpose and mission of the company. And of course, a lot of companies, they have a mission statement, they have a vision statement, and so forth. And there's a purpose. Not all the companies are doing it well or behaving or in line with those visions, but they have one. The idea is that they have a direction that's beyond just making money.
Can you elaborate on this point? So, like, again, as a new business, what vision? My vision is to just earn as much as I can, by of course adding value to people's lives. So whatever business I'm doing or whatever service I'm giving, I'm making someone's life better through my service. Isn't that vision enough to? Yeah,
exactly. The idea is that that's the main purpose. The main purpose isn't to make money. Of course, you need to make money for the company to survive, to continue to go. You obviously need food to be able to continue living. That's without question. The idea is if you ignore that, then you're going to have a problem. You're not going to be around long enough to be able to see through the vision. But once that is taken care of and you have, let's say, passive income, you have assets, things that are bringing money in the company, as well as personally, then your focus can be more and more on your vision and your mission, which is what's going to keep you around for the long run.
Is it wiser to have a vision or mission when you start your business?
Ideally, yeah. I mean, asking these big questions of why am I doing this business in the first place? I mean, there are some things, some small businesses and some small investments where the focus is just to make a return. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But the idea is if you're an entrepreneur and you want the business to last for a long time, is that vision and those values and that mission is what's going to have you see through the difficult times. Because there's times where it's so difficult, the money doesn't make sense anymore, and you're going to want to quit. Maybe you go into a different business.
Maybe that's what makes people get bored of what they do, because they're just doing the same thing again and again, and then they're like, enough, I want to just do something else now.
Exactly.
But when you're an entrepreneur, you cannot really jump like this in life. You have to stay together, keep whatever happens, you get up again and find a meaning in whatever you're doing. You know, it's been 14 years I'm running this company, and there has been times when I'm like, shit, I'm not happy, I'm not enjoying, what am I doing? And that's when I start thinking out of the box and start thinking creative ideas of how I can add to my business, what are the different things I can do. And this session, these live videos, is something that was in my vision always. You know, it was my dream to kind of have a podcast or have a show wherein I can call in all these entrepreneurs and people who achieved in life, sit with them, converse with them, talk to them and learn their successes and their failures and what happened and how did they fall down and how did they get up, because life is ups and downs, right? Because only when you fall down, that's when you can look up and then rise up again. So
exactly,
everybody goes through that.
And that comes through. I mean, if you were to just be only money focused and your decisions were based off of just how much money do I get out of this, you will do the absolute minimum work and you put in the minimum value for the money that you get back. And a lot of people don't like dealing with businesses that are like that. If you look at it, they appreciate the fact that you're passionate about it, you enjoy it, and it's not necessarily the focus of, I'm only doing this for a transaction. Yeah. It's when you go beyond that, then you build loyal customers, a loyal client base. And those are the relationships that keep you in business for a long time.
Yeah.
It's because the relationship, you go over and beyond. And if it were me, I would want to go with a company or a vendor or supplier or consultant that is more interested in my well-being, and that's what they exist for, is for me to be successful. They are vested in my success, and I'm happy to repay the success as well, for them to keep doing what they're doing, because I know that company has to make money and be profitable for them to stay around.
Yeah.
If I were to get the cheapest price and they give me the best value, And over time, the company would go out of business, and they won't be able to provide me what I need anymore, and I wouldn't be able to keep them around.
Yeah, this is very important point to think about. When you are doing business in life, whatever work, not only business, whatever job you're doing or something, as long as you're making sure that whatever work or service you're providing, it's adding value to the other person's life, solving their problems, and you go beyond whatever you promised the other person, and do more to make sure that they benefit from the service that you're providing. That's when the business thrives.
Especially when you have a long-term outlook. Yeah, I mean, in the short run, most businesses start out. I think about Steve Jobs. His story is that when he did the first computer, it actually was just a motherboard. It was the motherboard with the chips and everything like that, and he had no keyboard, no screen, no nothing, and that's how he sold them. And the idea was that his friends wanted it so much that they got really busy and they didn't have enough time. So they said, well, why don't we try to sell some of these and make a little bit of money off of it? And the company started, Apple started on the second computer. So he had the Apple I and the Apple II, was just the next version. And the next version, he added the keyboard, and I think he added the monitor and put it all in one box and made it really easy. But it was only to make money, for that. He had a vision as well, but it wasn't this grand vision that we know as Apple today.
So when Apple started with the vision of just making money.
Money, yeah.
And then you shared the story with me when we were having a talk about this, this session. So you want to share the more story about Apple, of how his vision became a purpose? You shared with me the process of how Apple thought of, creating value to people's life, or doing changes in the way people look at mobile phones.
One guy that summarized it very well is Simon Sinek. He talked about how Apple focuses on the why, and that's the core of what a company or a person or a family or an organization is. And on the outside is more of what they do, what a company does, what a person does, but why they do it is at the core. And so with Steve Jobs, he was very focused on why they do what they do, and it just happens to be that they're in the technology industry and computers and so forth. So he had this vision of how is this technology applicable to people? How does it improve their lives? Rather than, hey, let's do more computing, faster computing, more graphics, and more space and so forth. So he really brought the human side of it into it, and that's why a lot of people aspire to those products, because of how they thought of themselves, what values they shared. Apple was an innovative company, so a lot of people were wanting to associate with innovation and being not necessarily the best technology, but the most practical and helpful and useful technology. Because technology on its own doesn't do anything, but when it changes your life and it improves your life and it gives you more ability, then that's when you become interested. He had this one campaign where he talked about the computer is like the bicycle for the mind. And the reason why he said that is because there's a story that he read, or an article that he came across, that said that out of all the animals in the world, the most energy efficient as far as travel is, I think, an eagle or a falcon or something like that, for traveling long distances for the least amount of energy. And human beings were on 30, 35 or something like that. But as soon as a human being was riding a bicycle, it surpassed the falcon or the bird by maybe 2 or 3 times. And he says that tool, that thing, that imagination that a human being can create a tool to accelerate or enhance their ability is uniquely human. And he sold the computer to do the same thing. Is that the human is the essence, the initial part, but the computer is helping the human rather than the human driving the computer.
Yeah.
And so that vision and that focus was very, very different, and more people were inspired by that than they were necessarily with computers, because most people around the world, especially with the iPhone, had never used the internet or used a computer. Most people's first interaction with the computer was the iPhone. So they got really inspired by that. But with Kiyosaki, when I came across it in college, like I said, it was with the MLM. One of the mindset shifts for me was that I understood that I don't have to be really smart to be able to be financially independent, and I also don't have to be rich. He doesn't promote being rich necessarily. He talks about how you can have freedom of time. And the definition that he used was from Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller is a futurist and innovator, an inventor, architect from, I think, the 60s and 70s mostly. I mean, he's been around he was around for a long time. And he said wealth is how much time you have, how long you can go without needing to work. And that's your wealth. So if you can go 20 years without needing a job, then that's your wealth. It's the amount of time.
What do I do with all that time that comes up with it? Oh God, there's nothing to wake up to, nothing to go to work for, and what do I do with all that time?
And so your focus shifts, right? Because you're no longer looking at surviving, you're focused on either success or significance. So when your company and your family and yourself, you're focused on what kind of contribution can I make? Why am I here? What am I doing? What's the purpose of what I'm doing? Rather than just to survive, meaning making money and keeping the company going, keeping your life going, and so forth, is focusing on more purposeful things or meaningful things. And most people are inspired on that purpose. They're more inspired and want to associate with that. They want to do business with such people. They want to get to be close to people, have relations with such people or such organizations. And there's organizations that have none of that, and there are products and services that fit those needs. But once you have that extra time, then you have bigger questions to answer. You have different kind of problems that you focus on. Okay, well, where am I going? Why am I doing it? And so for which top management or leadership in companies, that's what they focus on. They don't focus on the day-to-day. They're not focusing on how many sales do we have and how much revenue we have and what are the operations, how efficient we are. They're thinking about what is the meaning of this organization? Why should anybody work for us? Why should anybody buy from us? Why should we continue to exist? Which these are not day-to-day questions that you answer. These are long-term ones. But that's what the leadership does. Same thing with the family. Same thing as an individual.
So let me just ask a question. Like, there's so many other companies who are producing products which are not really necessarily good for our health. I don't want to mention any brand.
Sure.
So what is their vision? What are they at? They know that they're creating drinks or food which is going to harm people's health versus making it any better for them. How do they create a vision or mission or make their company more authentic to work for? Will their leaders and employees work for them?
I think that is a good question to ask to find out what are those companies' visions and missions. I think anything that we do, there are negative things about it. If you're going to build a home, you can say, okay, that's great. I'm building a home for shelter and protection and all that. But at the same time, you have to use natural resources. You have to cut down trees and dig up natural resources from the ground and so forth. So you're harming the environment. So there's always negative things that you can look at what you're doing. The idea is that are you going in the direction of you're trying to minimize the negative parts and maximize on the positive parts. And ideally, those companies are going to keep doing what they're doing if they have that positive vision. I don't think any company or any leader or any organization is going to last very long if they kept seeing as a product or service as being really detrimental to society and the environment and so forth. So we all make our own, based off our own values, we make decisions on the products we want to buy. So let's say for the climate change and climate challenge, is that a lot of people are shifting their focus on, they're concerned about the environment so much that they're choosing different kind of products and different kind of services that are supporting that. That's what they desire, so that shifts. And what companies end up doing is they start shifting to the consumer desires. Is that if people are demanding, let's say, solar power, green energy, or more efficient buildings, or places that recycle, they decide to go eat somewhere where they have more recycling there. That's their own values and choices, and then they shift. Some restaurants do that, and they can keep the way they are, or some restaurants maybe don't. And then people make their decisions. That's why every company, even if they're in the same industry, if there's two coffee companies, they have different values and visions. And that's what separates them. Because if you look at just the coffee alone, it will not be apparent how they're different. I remember when I was working for Shea Homes down in San Diego, we did some trainings. So people would buy their house, and during construction we would have them come to the site and we'd educate them about how the house is built. Because a lot of them wouldn't know how it's built and how they're different. How this home builder, Shea, compares to other ones. And a lot of it is inside, right? It's inside the walls and the products that we put in. And most people don't know that. So we educated them. And the question that the trainer was asking, he says, do you think all the builders are the same? Of course, the house is the same. It's got walls, it's got a roof, it's got plumbing, and all that works. But do you think it's the same? And of course, the answer is no, but they don't know how it's different.
How is it different?
So he would go on and say, we spend more money, let's say, on the wrapping, on the waterproofing of the house.
Okay.
Now, when they spend more on that, you never see it because the price of the home is based off the market. not based off of how much it costs. It's not like a coffee or a computer or a pencil or something like that, which is mostly based off of how much it costs for them to make it. With a house, it's based off of what the market is, or what somebody's willing to pay for it, not necessarily how much money it costs to make it. And it's a bit harder to do that with a house. So you would explain that, we spend more money on the piping, we spend more money on the wrapping, we spend more money on the walls, our paint is a higher quality, all these little things we spend more on, but you still pay the same price as some competitor, right? So once you understand that the products that go into the house and what makes the house is different than the one over here, even though the house looks the same, maybe you're looking at the floor plan, how much square footage I get, I like the color of the carpet, I like how much backyard space I get.
Nobody really goes into the depth of what is going, what kind of material is being used and finishing and all that.
And that comes from the home builder having a vision of educating the home buyer and understanding value, right? So they're doing these free trainings, which cost them even more money to set up and for people to come and understand and all that, to do that. But their vision is that they want a long-term home buyer, somebody that's going to come and buy their home once, twice, 3 times, and so forth. Maybe their kids or relatives buy homes from them. So that was the vision. That company has been around for 125 years.
Wow.
So that company started out with the Hoover Dam and the Golden Gate Bridge, so they have a very long reputation. Wow. But with these companies that want to be around for that long, they're going to be focusing on that. And the idea
of the value that they're providing, because that's what people are buying. People are going to buy the value that you give them, not necessarily.
Warren Buffett's very famous for saying that value is what you get, price is what you pay. And more often than not, people are going to pay a lower price than the value. So if the value's up here and you pay this much, it makes an easier way to make a decision. Yeah. If it's about the same, if what you're going to pay is what you're going to get, it's harder to make a decision.
How do you decide that? How do we make a difference in where we are in our pricing as a business?
Well, it's the value. Like, let's say the services that you provide. If the service that you provide, what they, let's say, pay you, they're able to increase their profits by 2 times, right? They pay you a certain amount and they make double that because they paid you and you helped them with the services, right? Or they became more efficient, or they spent less. That's an easy decision to make because it's more than what they're paying.
Yeah.
But if let's say an employee, if you hire an employee, this is one of the things that I learned after I stopped working, is that employees will never ever get paid what they're worth. Why? Because if a company hires somebody and pays them what they're worth, meaning that what they produce for the company.
Then what do we make then?
Yeah, you might as well delete them, right? If you're spending $100,000 on a salary and that employee makes you $100,000, if you delete them, it's easier, right? But if the employee is making the company
so
$200,000,
value always has to be 5 times, 2 times, 3 times, at least double, whatever.
Well, more, right?
More than the price you pay.
Right. When it comes down to employees, that's always going to be the case. The employee is always going to be there to produce more for the company, bring more value for the company than they were getting salary.
I think it applies to all businesses also. In every aspect of life, I think when you give more value, that's when it's easier for you to make a choice between this or that.
Yes, exactly. Like, let's say for washing your clothes, if you want to have your shirt ironed and pressed and everything, but you don't really have the time, but it's very important that you have a very clean shirt when you go to an interview or when you're going to meet a client, right? What it costs you to dry clean your shirt is so small in comparison to how you present yourself at an interview, right? You're happily going to pay that. That's so much more value, especially if you're not very good at ironing or washing. So there's tremendous value that you get out of that. In other cases where maybe you have a lot of time and you do your own ironing very well and you wash your clothes very well, there's not much value in having your clothes dry clean or a shirt.
True. So you started. So my next question is, how did this, whatever you chose to do, from doing multi-level marketing to coming to Dubai to doing this, you started your own company here, then you left that company and you did whatever other things to get financial independence. How has it changed your life, and what are the challenges you faced in achieving this? And now that you've achieved it, what are the new challenges you're facing now? It'll be lovely to hear that.
Well, that's a long question to answer, but to start off, when I came out here, or actually when I read the book, it really did change my mindset. Even though the book in Kiyosaki is very popular for not giving details about what to do, he talks about the story and the different ways of thinking and so forth. And what that did was that triggered a chain reaction for me. So just like a vision, and we talked about, and a mission, is that when you have a direction where you want to go, then all the decisions that you make on a daily basis are affected by that big decision on where do I go? What do I do in the big scale? So for me, I wanted financial independence. I didn't want to be dependent on a job.
You want to define what is financial independence so everybody can understand that?
I'm glad you asked that. I didn't mention that before. So financial independence, the way Kiyosaki talks about it, is focusing on cash flow rather than large sums of money, or saving for retirement. A lot of people have this concept of retirement. I put money aside, I have that try to grow, and then when I retire, then I can be free.
That's what everybody thinks.
A lot of people, they think that. So the rich, they think of a different perspective, and the way he explained it is the cash flow. If you have money that's coming in that you don't work for, basically passive income as opposed to active income. Active income is something that you keep working, you do something, and you get paid. And if you stop doing that thing, then you don't get paid anymore, which typically is earned money or earned income, salary.
Business, whatever.
If you stop going to work, they don't pay you anymore. But if you have let's say a property, and the property has renters in it, then they're paying every month, and there's work involved, but much less compared to
just collecting rent every month, I guess.
Almost. It's not exactly that easy, but much more passive. So you have the active income, and then you have the passive income. And the passive income is basically focused on cash flow, some positive amount of money that's coming in on a regular basis. And the rich focus more and more on that. So you can imagine that if your passive income increases and your active income stays the same, and your passive income covers everything that you spend, maybe your rent, your gas, your food, your clothes, and so forth, then this gives you freedom. Meaning that that passive income, because it's passive, if it's coming in on a regular basis, then that income is enough to
sustain your life.
Sustain your life.
So how is it going to make difference to my old age? How is it going to apply there? Like, why don't I still need to save for my retirement?
Sure, if you don't.
But if this passive income keeps coming until I'm alive, it should be like that, right?
Right. So the idea is that the passive income not only stays the same, but it increases over time, because of course money devalues over time and things become.
So there are more dynamics to this, not just having income which is equal to your expenses.
Yeah, I mean, when your expenses, if your expenses stay the same, then the income stays the same, or the passive income stays the same, then you're fine. But the idea is that you can say that you're retired at that time, meaning that you don't need to work. But you can achieve cash flow much sooner than you can achieve $3 million for retirement. That's much, much easier to do if you're focusing on that. So that gives you direction. If you're saying that, okay, I want financial independence, I'm not looking for early retirement, because early retirement is usually defined by a lump sum of money.
Okay, that's what I wanted to just specify. So early retirement is when you have lump sum of money. Say for example, once you have $3 million, that's it. You don't need to work. You think it's going to be enough, and you stay with that money for whatever time. But the cash flow is you have constant income coming on a regular basis
that you don't have to work for on a regular basis. So the idea is that there's nothing that is completely passive. Absolutely nothing is 100% passive.
Even the riches have to work.
We all have to work, but the idea is that you work less and make more. So your ability to find more of these things, find assets, meaning things that make money on a regular basis. Let's say you write a book, right? You write the book one time, and maybe you do updates, it gets republished, there's some effort, and then you got to market the book and all that. But that's a lot less work than going to a job every day. Right? So imagine you do that one time. You write a book, and then you have some more free time. You can have free time to write another book. Or you have intellectual property. Like Kiyosaki created this board game called Cashflow. That's intellectual property. That's his design, his idea, and he gets to make money off of his idea, his invention. So if you had more time, then you can invest that time into more things that earn you more passive income. And that's how the rich do it, is that they look for things that are able to give them more passive income rather than active income. Because if you're active income and you have to actively work on something, it gets hard to do more and more of that because there's only so many hours in the day. So if you're able to do less work and make more money off of that, and then you can apply this to your job as well. There's a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, where he talks about how people in jobs, they can transfer their job into a remote job. If you can convince or negotiate how you can work 1 day a week from home or 2 days a week from home instead of in the office, and you're able to produce the same amount of work or even more for less time, then you're generating more passive income. Meaning that for the same salary, for the 2 days that you're home, if you can do the 2 days of work in 4 hours, right, you've basically given yourself a promotion. You're making more money for less time. Now, if you're at work and you are working very hard and you're able to do more and more work, they'll give you more and more work in the same amount of time. They don't want you sitting around, right?
Yeah.
But that's not beneficial for you, that's beneficial for the company.
Yeah.
So, of course, if the company's making 2, 3, 4 times your salary for them, they're happy already.
Yes.
So making more money for the company is not minding your own business, as Kiyosaki says. Is that you want to mind your own business, meaning that you take care of yourself. Because the company is not there to take care of you, the company is there to take care of itself. That you're there for a purpose, you help the company, and you're helping them, and you're keeping the business going. But it's very important that you take care of your own retirement, you take care of yourself, you take care of your family. Don't rely on the company to take care of you or the government. You know, a lot of people in America are relying on Social Security, and Social Security is a really broken system. Many social countries are having difficulty with providing enough funds for the people in old age to be able to have a normal life. So he encourages people to be financially wise, understand how investing works, understanding how the rich work, how the rich think, and focusing on more passive income than active income. Even if it's a little bit, it doesn't mean that you're rich, it doesn't mean that you have millions of dollars, but it just means you have freedom of time.
So what were your challenges in achieving this financial freedom?
My challenges was that I didn't think I could do it. That was the biggest one, is that I felt like I wasn't smart enough, because there's plenty of smart people out there that are struggling financially. Like I said, people who would earn really good money, maybe $100,000 or $200,000 a year, and they would struggle, and they wouldn't have much of a retirement, or they were not going to be able to quit their job anytime soon. So I thought, if these smart people can't do it, then what chance do I have? So Kiyosaki, gave the story about how he was barely getting by in school, and his dad was in education. He was the superintendent of the state of Hawaii for education. So he had a very high level of teaching and credentials in his family, and he was horrible at it. So it was an embarrassment for his dad, embarrassment for his family. Obviously, he was embarrassed. So he also didn't think that he could do well. But his rich dad didn't finish the 8th grade, and he had a lot more money because he was financially literate. He could read financial statements and understand money and where it would go. So this simple concept. The simple concept. The simple concept was that if you're able to put your money into things that make money, right, then you can keep doing this over and over. And the poor mindset in the middle class, what they do is they put their money into liabilities, or they spend it all. A liability, based off of the definition of an asset and liability. Asset puts money in your pocket, liability takes money from your pocket. So based off of that definition alone, your house is going to be a liability. Even though it's worth a lot, maybe you have a lot of equity in it, you can sell it for a profit, every month it takes money from you. So
because I'm living in it? Because I'm using it?
You're using it, you're consuming it, right? But if you were to move out of your house, and let's say move into a smaller house or rent a smaller apartment or something like that, where your expenses go down, and that house, you can rent it and make money on a regular basis every month, then that house goes from a liability to an asset. And if you sold it, you make the money because you already have your house, and you don't have to move out. So then it becomes an asset. And understanding this difference is what makes the difference with rich people and poor people, or middle class. The middle class is stuck. Smart people, because of how they define asset and liability and how they see their money, is what separates them. And it's a mindset. It's not about being smarter. So this gave me the most optimistic outlook that I can do it, this is achievable by anybody. It's just your perspective and mindset on the situation. If your mindset is that I need to keep working for 40 years and save up money and retire when I'm hopefully 60, that's one mindset. But this is a different mindset, where if I focus on cash flow, then I'm able to quit much sooner. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to afford everything that I want, but I simply don't have to work. Now, if I continue to work in that job, and I can, that doesn't mean I have to quit working. It doesn't mean I have to quit my job. I may very much love my job. I may really enjoy it. But at least when I go to work, I don't feel like I have to put up with my boss. I don't have to put up with this company. I don't have to put up with these clients and so forth. Then your motivation is, how am I going to maybe overcome these challenges? How am I going to be a better employee? How am I going to be a better...
So you're not there for money anymore. You're there for experience, you're there for fun, you're there for giving back, and all those things.
And what's funny is that once you're not motivated by the money anymore, and you're there to bring value to your company, to your colleagues, and your work environment, your purpose is to have a good attitude. You actually will probably get promoted, you'll get better job offers.
So more money will automatically come to you. So it's like a cycle. Money attracts more money.
Because you have a better attitude, right? Your attitude is not bottom line, your attitude is top line, is that what can I bring that's really meaningful? And everybody likes to hire such people, like to work with such people, like to partner with such people, and invest with such people. So your motivation shifts because you're not motivated by just surviving. You know, and unfortunately, society really promotes a lot of that spending and consumerism.
Yeah,
and that's the challenge.
There's so much glamour in Dubai. We have sales every day. There's so much fashion. There's people. Everybody is eating out all the time, buying stuff. So
which is hard, and those are the sacrifices that I had to make because my vision, my mission was freedom and financial independence was much more important to me. So when I started out in my first job, I had $50,000 in debt, and I only had $500 in my bank account. And that was really, really difficult for me because if I didn't...
Did you sleep?
I
can't sleep.
I had some nights that were very difficult, but
yeah.
I made this decision that I'm going to set this budget that I'm going to pay myself, meaning that I'm going to save. Like you said, how do you, if you don't have any money to invest and so forth, how do you start? And it started by making sacrifices, saying, this is not as important to me, like having more entertainment, maybe having nicer furniture, maybe having a nicer car. Like I bought a used car. It was quite old. It wasn't even just a couple of years old. It was like 10 years old. But it did the job. It got me to my job. It was reliable. It had less expenses for insurance and gas. It didn't look so good. Maybe I would have liked to have something better and show my friends, especially with my new job and living in San Diego. But I made those sacrifices. And after 18 months, when they asked me to leave, they fired me, I was okay. I had 6 months to a year of time because I was financially stable. And interestingly enough, that about 6 months after I got fired, half of my team got fired because the market shifted. Okay. And the market went down and they had to let go of people. And a lot of those people were relying on that salary coming in, and they were panicking. They only had 1 month to be able to live and pay their rent and pay their food and everything before they went broke. But I was relaxed, and I actually decided, what's the best job I can take? And I thought about coming here to Dubai and following the dream of working on some of the biggest projects in the world. I got to work on the Burj Khalifa, but it wasn't because of money. And I actually took a salary cut when I came here to work on the Burj Khalifa, and for a very reputable company as well. But the money wasn't motivating me, so I could make that decision because financially I was secure enough to take a lower paying job. But in other situations, you might say, well, I really need the money, so I'll go with a job that maybe is not as respectable, and maybe I'm not very passionate about it, but it pays more. So these are the opportunities, the practical side of applying the mindset. Because the freedom and the independence was more important to me, I made sacrifices today so I could have much more stability and significance in the future. I can make better decisions. So I'm not in a panic mode. If I don't have a job or salary today, that I have a little bit of time at least to think about what my next move is. What do I want to do, and why do I want to do it?
So when you had your own company, you had a company which was into climate, some sustainability.
Yeah, sustainability. Yeah. So around 2011 is when I had my last job, and I was financially stable at that time, and didn't need a salary anymore. So
that's when you decided to open the company.
Yeah, it was a really good opportunity. I was working with my colleague and friend from college, and he actually got fired. And he's like, I'm gonna start something, and why don't we do it together? And I said, hey, I'm ready to go. I was ready for a risk. And I had more time, and I had more financial stability, and that ended up doing very well. Within 6 months, we were profitable, and within a year, we were growing too much. It was actually so fast that it became very challenging to keep up with the progress. But in 2012, we started that and co-founded it. I since got out of that company. He's continuing it, and it's doing very well. And I focus more of my efforts on more passive income. Through real estate and investing and so forth. And that's when I spent more time with the Cashflow Club. So I enjoyed being around like-minded people. I very much personally wanted to share what I know because I felt like, I don't know everything, but what I have learned about money and money management, I can teach other people so they can have more independence. So they're not reliant on their job and the salary, and they can actually add value when they go to work.
So this new financial freedom that you got, how did it impact, what other challenges it got to you? About, now you're financially free, you have all the time in the world to do whatever you want to do, live your dreams, travel. This is what everybody wants, right? They want to travel the world, they want to spend more.
It's not quite like that. I'll quote Kiyosaki. He says that everybody has money problems. I still have money problems just like everybody else. The money problems don't go away whether you're a company, whether you're a family, individual, or even a government. a government has money problems. And as he explains, is that everybody has two problems with money, is that either they have too much money or not enough money. And having too much money is a problem, is that the money can't be sitting there and idle because it's losing value. It needs to be working. So both those situations are a problem, and I have money problems just like everybody else does. And again, I'm not rich, even though I have a lot more freedom with my time. Then what I do with that time is really the tough part, is answering these questions on a daily basis. Is that, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing, and what's the end result that I'm looking for? If my result isn't just to be able to have security, pay my rent and luxuries and so forth, then what other things can I do that really give me quality of life and other people, and it's more meaningful, something that's lasting, maybe even part of my legacy, you know, what I want to leave behind and what kind of influence I want to have and impact I want to have. And that gets very exciting. That's where I feel like the real exciting challenge in life comes in, is where you're interested in your contribution and change that you can make. Maybe your profession, maybe there's things that you really didn't like when you were working, and you wanted to always improve those things and change those things. Then you can get to work and focusing on that. Maybe you do create a company that is focused solely on changing that aspect of your industry. Maybe this is very inefficient, or they're very ineffective in the way that they were working in the company, or maybe the culture of the company wasn't that strong, and you like to work with a company that has a strong culture and to encourage that strong culture. So with the Cashflow Club, you know, it's always been motivation of teaching and learning and growing with other people. And I spent a lot of my time doing that, and it's fantastic to share that knowledge, and I'm not needing to get anything from them. And that's where the relationships grow, and I've actually made more money and have people invested with me because of that genuineness. People get to see my competency, and we play this game, and we get to know each other and become more comfortable.
I'm going to come on this one at the end, because I want people to take a note of where to find this and everything. But before we go there, I wanted to ask you, so, you know, this concept of having a cash flow mindset is going to be, of course, beneficial for everyone. But how can businesses and entrepreneurs kind of leverage on other people's? Can you share with us, like, you know, taking leverage from other people's money, or using debt wisely to grow? How can these concepts apply to businesses and entrepreneurs?
Right. When you talk about leverage and debt, that's a very, very important subject, and Kiyosaki refers to it as a loaded gun. You know, you need to be very, very careful with a gun or with debt, meaning that it could protect you and save your life, or it could hurt you and kill somebody that, you know, unintentionally. So the idea is that once you understand money and how it works and how to use it and be responsible with your money, then you can use that debt to leverage and to benefit yourself further.
So what's a good debt and a bad debt? You explain that.
That's a good question. Good debt, the way Kiyosaki defines it, is debt that makes you money. So you borrow the money to make more money.
So taking loan is not bad.
Loan itself is not bad, but what you do with the loan is. Same thing as the computer example, is that if you have a computer and you don't do anything with it, it ends up being a liability, it ends up being an extra cost. But if you bought the computer and it helps you, create an online business, and you're able to learn from it, educate yourself, do better in your job or whatever it may be, then it's an investment. Same thing with the debt, is that if you buy a house that you're going to live in, buying a bigger house and taking on a bigger mortgage is bad debt, meaning that you're consuming more and more. You're getting a nicer car and borrowing money to buy a nicer car, your expenses go up. But if you were to buy a house that you rent out, and when you rent it out, it ends up making you money after you pay the mortgage and you pay your expenses and so forth, then borrowing that money made you money. That's good debt, yeah. And if you, let's say in a company, you have a couple of trucks that you need to buy, and you buy the trucks, and the trucks end up making you money because you're able to do deliveries and services and so forth. Your employees are able to get to the clients or whatever it is. That car, borrowing money to buy the car to make more money in your company, it's good debt life, but the same principles apply. Is that taking on good debt is obviously beneficial, and bad debt is the stuff that you consume with. It increases your liabilities, increases your expenses, and it doesn't add any. The notion that all debt is bad. And if you're not very good with money, if you're not very good with controlling your spending, then that may be the best option, is to say, you know what, no credit cards, I won't borrow, and I just stick with what I can. And you're more sophisticated and you know how to manage money for it to grow, then taking on debt and leveraging that and using OPM or other people's money is extremely beneficial.
OPM, other people's money. That's a short form of.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that there's a lot more money out there than there is with me. So with a company that wants to grow, that they have an IPO, initial public offering, when they start selling shares, that's the idea. They're using OPM, right?
Yes.
Because the company only has so much money, and using the people's money, people who want to invest in the company, give their money to be owners in it. When all that money comes in, then the company, especially if they have a recipe for success, then they can grow and make more money. And that's how the rich think, is that they put money into things that make more money.
I think that's what I know about the riches, is riches never put their money. They always take other people's money. And this is one lesson I've learned through the Cashflow Club, through my family, through my father, who's also an investor and a business owner, that always leverage on other people's money. You know, you don't have to always invest your own savings into. So the concept, learning the concept of good debt, bad debt is very good, so people can understand. When you take a loan, which is bringing money back, you're going to pay off that loan and then make some money out of it. That's when you're actually leveraging on other people's money. So because bank loan is not bad.
No, not itself. Bank loan in and of itself is not bad, but how you use it. Meaning that if you don't have the financial sophistication, the literacy to understand the numbers, and understanding that you take this money and it should make money for you, meaning you've done the calculations and you check that, okay, I'm going to borrow this money and I'm going to put it into this property, let's say, or into this car or asset, and it is going to make me money to pay for the debt and to leave something over, then you're able to leverage and use other people's money to make money. And that's where it can get very exciting, and you can make actually money, an infinite return on your money, meaning that if you use none of your own money and you make money off of it.
That's a very good point. Is it possible to use not at all your, how can you do that? You need money to, even the bank to give you loan needs to see how is money coming to you to pay that loan, right?
Exactly. They're going to be looking at it. Now, if you're good at your finances and you're good at managing your money, they will give money to people who don't have any, because they'll see that you know how to manage the money. Yeah. Because in a business, let's say an operating business that's been going on even here in Dubai, you've been operating for 3-4 years and you're making money, right? You're profitable. Now you want to expand and you want to double the size of your company after 3 years. And you know that you're going to be successful if you double their size, but you don't have any money to double the size, right? And you go to the bank and you show them the financials, you show them in the 3 years, this is how much revenue you've been getting and you're profitable and everything, and this is your business plan and so forth. And if you're able to present that well and it's a reasonable case, then they're going to say, okay, we'll give you the money to, because you have none, we give you the money to expand, right? They'll put money into something that has the potential and very likelihood of bringing in more money. So you don't have the money to expand, so that's why you go to a bank to do that.
You can also go to investors. I'm sure there are so many businesses and people with lots of money sitting, waiting for someone to come and help them grow that money. And I met a few today.
Yeah, there are people who do have the too much money problem, so it'd be good to know more of that.
I know. So my last question, what are the small things that businesses or entrepreneurs can start doing or changing to start improving their cash flow?
Well, one of the smallest things that I know of is to look at your personal situation. Is that a lot of your personal habits do transfer over into your business, especially if you're an entrepreneur and it's a bootstrapping business or a small business. A lot of those habits do transfer over. So in your own personal life, to understand where your expenses are going, where are you spending? Are you at a surplus? Are you able to put money aside every month and knowing where you're spending, and is that spending really necessary? Is it really beneficial? And then to take those same philosophies and apply them to your business, is looking at this money that we're spending in the business. It's not that the company's not making any money, but where are we spending the money? Are we spending on building loyal customers? Are we spending on having better products and services? Are our employees happy? Are we investing in that to get a better return on our employees? Where is it most useful to spend the money? And are we able to have a surplus to be able to continue reinvesting in growing the business?
Another thing you mentioned during this conversation was paying yourself first. I think this, as an entrepreneur, we forget to do, because as a starting business or a business owner, you pay yourself last, because you have to pay the salaries, you have to pay the rents, you have to pay all the other business expenses, you have to pay your vendors. This one thing I learned by reading the book and also through the Cashflow Club is always pay yourself first. Only after you get, everybody else should get paid. Yeah. So this is something, key takeaways from for me in this conversation. Thank you so much, Arvin, and I'm going to come to that question of how people can join the Cashflow Club and more about that. But what we took away today from today's conversation is to have a to think about, you can either be financially free and rich, either or, right? So being rich is not just having a lot of money. You can be rich by having wealth of time, by being financially independent. That is, your passive income without you doing the work is enough to pay your expenses, and you're sort of rich because now you're not working for money anymore.
Yeah, you have freedom of time. Exactly.
And then you can do more things, you can launch more businesses, you can take more jobs, and you can do so many things to generate more wealth for yourself. And the goal actually should be for everyone how to make money work for itself. No, that's something that maybe we can cover in some future topics.
And that's a mindset rather than a practical thing, right? It's a direction of thinking of how can I be able to do more things that are giving me passive income than active income.
Yeah. So tell us more about the Cashflow Club and how people can find it.
Yeah, so Cashflow Club is on meetup.com, which is a platform like Facebook. And for Dubai, you can search Dubai Cashflow Club. We're also in Abu Dhabi, in Sharjah. There's a branch in Tehran and Vancouver and Dallas. So just wherever you are, even if it's not one of the clubs that I'm involved with, I'm sure there's one in your city that you can find either through Meetup or on Facebook. And we get together and we play the game, and we basically practice these ideas. So we take the concepts, that are talked about in Rich Dad Poor Dad, and we try to apply them in a game. And it's fun because you can make mistakes and learn from the mistakes and practice it and see if you're really able to apply these ideas to make it practical and very applicable in your life.
So I've played the game. I'm also part of the club. I'm also leader in the club where I help Arvin and his team to execute more games and teach other people the games as well. And I want to share a little experience of what I had with the game. I played the game in 2002 or 2004 when first, I don't remember exactly, when the first club, which was owned by someone else, and I had just read the book at that time where Kiyosaki mentioned the game. I found it on Meetup, and I went, it was at DIFC, and I decided that day when they started the game that, Namita, this is fake money, just spend everything. Every opportunity that I got, I don't want to reveal the game a lot because you have to come and play with us, but there are it's like a real world, that game. So you get you get paycheck, you have instances like there are what do you call it? We have dudas, so you're kind of investing in television. So real life random situations come up to you. There's baby coming up to you. So when they're baby, you lose your job.
There's also charity to give back.
There's a charity element. Then you also get bankrupt. There's so many different aspects. It's like a real life situation in the game. So that day I decided this is all fake money. I'm going to put whatever opportunity comes to me, and within 45 minutes or less, I think I was out of the rat race, and I was gifted a book. And there was 75 people playing on that first day. It was one of the first sessions of the Cashflow Club at that time. I was so happy. And then I became the regular. The next time I played, I got attached to money, to fake money. And I think this is the lesson, a key takeaway. Don't get attached to money. I believe money is like a cycle. The more you give away, the more it comes back to you. So never be so attached and close to money as well. Keep a free hand. Let it go, and I'm sure it will come back. Not that keep spending in your recreation or luxury, but you should be easy to give it for it to come back.
The idea is that if you had three people and you had one person, all three of them, you were to give them $1,000, let's say, and after a month you came to visit them again and see what happened with the $1,000. If the first person spent it all, right, you never give any money to that person again, and that's not very beneficial. The second person, let's say they saved $1,000 from the beginning of the month to the end of the month, they kept the $1,000, right? They just hold on to it. That also is not very useful. The third person is the one that actually made $1,000 into $3,000. They put it out there, they get it to work, they do something useful with it for it to grow, right? And it's the same concept, 1,000 years ago is still today. And it's that you want to be able to have that money to go out, to work and improve, and rather than just holding on to it. Saving is also good, because if you don't save at all, then you're in other trouble, right? That's the first step, is to be able to put money aside, pay yourself, have that money saved up.
And then invest
to
generate
which requires skills. Just like in your job, you have to have skills to be able to be competent in your job. There's also skills for you to be competent in investing. And being financially literate, being able to read the numbers, understanding the investment, the risks, understanding the risks are very, very important, because investing is risky. But the game allows you to get comfortable with risk, just like driving. You know, obviously when you get better at driving and you understand the rules and you understand how the cars work, then it becomes less risky because you know how to drive and you know how to avoid accidents.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
So come play with us. Look out for us on meetup.com, Dubai Cashflow Club. And by playing the game, you not only learn your own behavior with the money that you have in the game when you get these paychecks and how you choose the deal. You understand what your limitations are, what are your fears. You kind of live your real fears into this mock world.
It's more of a simulation.
It's a simulation, yeah. And then you also learn from others. There are so many people, there are different people playing with you on one table. We have about 6 people playing on a table. And you see what others do with the money. How do they play with the money? How do they invest? How do they choose what they choose? How is the more surplus coming to them? And you get new ideas. And then those ideas, they get automatically applied to real life. And then you suddenly start seeing these opportunities around you. And then you start noticing, okay, there's this new share releasing, or you know, there are these new investment opportunities. Just start becoming more open and aware and mindful of all these new things that are happening around you, which otherwise you wouldn't even see them.
And it's a process. I don't want to give the impression that people come and play the game, they get excited, and they go buy real estate tomorrow or invest in a business and so forth. That's not the idea. But as you said, you become more aware.
Yeah.
And when your awareness increases over time, your knowledge increases, you become more interested, and you start a journey. Yeah. And for me, it's been about 15, 20-year journey. And it didn't happen overnight, and like I said, I read it when I was in college, and it's been a process, still is a process. I'm still growing and learning about investing. I've definitely lost money in investments, even with all my
experience. Part of the game, winning and losing. You have to be ready to lose to win. It's very important,
It's not easy losing, but once you understand
that,
you learn from the mistakes, exactly. To get back up again and try it again and so forth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So don't get attached to money. It's okay, losing is part of the game. Create a financial mindset of the riches. It's not necessarily having a lot of wealth, which makes people rich, but also having wealth that comes to you without working for it. Gives you freedom of time, which is more wealth, which is more time for you to create more wealth. And start small, play safe. Join us at the club. Look out for us on meetup.com Cashflow Club. Thank you so much, Arvin, for the conversation. I think the session went way overboard, and I let it go because there's so much goodness and there's so much knowledge with Arvin that I wanted to share with my audience, people who watch this show. But thank you so much for your time and sharing all this information.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Before we go, I see a lot of people joined us, and I see some questions. I just want to quickly see. Hey Sunil, there's a question here from Hamail. Can you please guide us how a current university student can develop cash flow mindset? Does your company provide live training for people in Dubai? I would really be interested in learning.
Well, for students, I remember when I was a student, the biggest thing was the money I had, which was mostly borrowed. I had to borrow a lot of money to go to school, and I was in a lot of debt. I had a part-time job, but I was very careful about the money that I had and how I spent it and where it went. And I was very aware of the money that I was borrowing and how much it was going up and the interest rate. So I was very focused on that interest rate and tried to pay the least amount of interest possible.
But that's in the US.
That's in the US, but even here, when you become better at borrowing, whether a credit card or a personal loan, you end up having a relationship with that bank. And as you pay your payments on time and you're smart with the money and you always make sure you have enough money to at least make the minimum payment, then you can actually start talking to them about better offers. The banks are not as strict as you may think. When you have anywhere. The better you are at managing money and borrowing money, you can go to them and say, hey, is there a promotion on maybe a lower interest rate? Or maybe I can shift the money to a different credit card that has a better interest rate. Or how about I pay it off and then I borrow again after 2 or 3 months or something like that. If you're good with your money and you understand how you need to have budgets and control over your spending, then you can manage that better. What happens is that when I was in college, I took on credit cards. I took on like 6 in the beginning. And I used them a little bit. I used them for groceries and I used them for gas or something like that. I bought a shirt or something or movies. Very minimal stuff. But because I used it, they started contacting me and say, hey, how about we give you a little bit more credit? And I said, I don't need it, but okay. And what happened was as I got more credit, this was a sign of me being responsible. And as my credit increased for the cards, they started giving me a promotion offer without me asking. And same thing has happened here in Dubai with Emirates MBD or a Mashreq card or something like that. That they come up to me and they say, here's a promotional offer. Now, just because there is a promotional offer, that doesn't mean that I go and borrow it just because it's cheap. But if I already have debt, moving the debt to cheaper interest means that even if I make the same payment, I pay off the principal faster. Yeah? So I keep my payment the same, and I'm able to save still every month. And the more I save, the more my bank account goes up, and I make the minimum amount of interest payments onto the debt, then the debt is going down faster while I'm saving as well. And by the time I graduated from college, even though I only had $500 in the account, I understood my debt. And once I had the job, within, like I said, 18 months of graduating, I was ahead of 80% of America. 80% of America is living paycheck to paycheck. So I had to live like a college student almost during those 18 months when I was earning money, and I was earning good money. But because I had that discipline while I was in college, I was able to fast forward ahead of 80% of America. That's 300 plus million people, and if you look at it worldwide, there's a lot of people, a lot more people, billions of people that are living paycheck to paycheck. So I was able to get out of that rat race, that situation where I have to keep working just to keep
the
staying.
money coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I hope Hamail, Arif, we answered your question. Learning, do you have any training? I think in the Cashflow Club we do trainings. We do different kinds of workshops and trainings on financial mindset, how to save.
Yeah, I did. A lot of it is the simulation, and like I was mentioning before, it's repetition. With Kiyosaki, he said when you play the game over and over and over again, it sinks in. Your awareness goes up, and it's kind of the self-training. Like pilots. Pilots have to go through simulations, and they have to go through crash tests, actually, because you don't want to be in the real situation, be in a real investment for the first time, and things go wrong and you're not prepared for it. So in the game, you get to take risks. You said it's funny money, and try it out. But you have to do it regularly to get comfortable with the simulation and these ideas, and bad things do happen in the game. Unfortunate situations come up.
You feel sad when you go bankrupt in the game.
Right, exactly. So you practice, and that becomes the best training. You remember and you benefit most when you're doing it. And you become mindful also. Like now when I look at investments, I'm so much better with the numbers. Even the agents get surprised. Like, how do you know all these things? I'm like, I know this. I teach this. Yeah, exactly. So that's the other thing is obviously for you teaching it, you know a lot more than the people who come and play the game. And I highly encourage, even Kiyosaki encourages that tremendously, that once you learn the game and you read the book, to teach it to other people. Not so much for their benefit, but for your benefit, that you really know the information. You're very comfortable with it, you understand it so well that you can explain it to somebody else to understand. And that is the true test of your understanding. And once you have that level of understanding, then it's much better and much easier to go and apply that in your life. Yeah. Awesome. I hope all of you enjoyed this session. Watch the replay, share it with people you think can benefit from this session. Ask us more questions if you have in the comments below, and me and Arvin will be happy to reply. Until next Monday, and I'll have another amazing guest with me. Bye-bye everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Arvin, for the session, for joining me, for sharing all this wisdom. And I hope in future we'll have you for some other more detailed financial number-based session. Sure, so I guess till we groom up till there. Thank you so much, and bye-bye everyone. Have a lovely week ahead. Bye.